In 1986, a desperate family moved into a quiet house in Southington, Connecticut, seeking hope amid hardship. What they found was terror, ghostly figures, violent spirits, and a darkness that defied explanation, or so they claimed. Was this a genuine haunting or a hoax born from desperation and deceit? I'm John Genoa. This is America's Strangest History. We're looking at the truth behind the blockbuster horror film, A Haunting in Connecticut. Let's begin. This tale inspired the 2009 horror flick, A Haunting in Connecticut. It's a story about a family tormented by spirits in a house with a pretty macabre past. I've seen the movie. They even made a sequel. It was decent. It's supposed to be loosely based on true events, so I want to know how loosely based we're talking here. What really happened? This video seeks to answer these questions and perhaps raise a few more. Our story kicks off in the summer of 1986. The Snedeker family, Alan and Carmen, their 3 sons, a daughter and 2 nieces, were in a tough spot. Their eldest son, Philip, was battling Hodgkin's lymphoma, and they needed a home near Yukon Health Center where he was receiving treatment. The Snedekers found 208 Meriden Avenue in Southington, Connecticut. It was a big, affordable rental that seemed like a godsend.
We'd only been here a few days when we went downstairs. That's when we saw it. Embalming tables, old tools, even a hoist. This wasn't just a house. It used to be a funeral home.
Until it wasn't. Yep, the Snedekers unknowingly moved into the former old Hallahan funeral home. The basement where their son slept was once a mortuary, still stocked with old toe tags and embalming equipment. Creepy? Absolutely. But was it haunted? Before we get there, let's review the facts. Property records and local historians agree the house was in fact previously a functioning funeral home. For decades, in fact. Check out this real estate listing. It's still tied to the address today. So we've got a family under stress, a sick kid, tight budget, and a house with a seriously morbid history. The perfect setup for a ghost story. But setups don't actually prove anything, so let's hear what the Snedekers say happened next. The family reported a multitude of horrifying experiences like apparitions, physical assaults, and sexual assaults. Now, they were primarily affecting their son, Philip, but let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. June 30th, 1986. Move-in date. According to the Snedekers, the weirdness started almost immediately. Objects went missing, then reappeared in odd places. The kids heard footsteps when no one else was around. Cold spots chilled the house, even in the summer, but things really escalated when Philip, the 14-year-old undergoing cancer treatment, he started seeing things no one else could.
They came at night, men in old suits, pale and angry. They'd stand there watching me. Then the whispering started. I couldn't make out the words, but it wouldn't stop.
Philip's behavior changed quickly. He got aggressive, carved strange symbols into the basement walls, and he told his parents he was talking to the dead. According to the Snedekers, the house was the site of intense paranormal activity from June 30th, 1986 to late 1988. Philip's visions of a man with long black hair and other entities. Carmen's experiences with blood-red mop water and smells of decay. Physical and sexual assaults on family members, including Carmen, Alan, and Tammy. Objects moving, such as rosary beads, breaking, and crucifixes disappearing. Carmen and Al were freaked out. Was it cancer, the stress, or maybe something else? That's when they called in the big guns. Ed and Lorraine Warren, some might say the rock stars of paranormal investigation. The Warrens had a reputation. Amityville, the Annabelle doll, you name it. I can actually go on and on. I've seen all the movies more times than I care to mention. The Warrens showed up at 208 Meriden Avenue and didn't waste time. After poking around, they declared the house overrun with evil spirits, maybe even demons, tied to the funeral home's past. They claimed bodies had been mishandled there, leaving restless souls behind. Specifically, the Warrens said necromancy by a former funeral home employee was to blame for their troubles. The Warrens claimed to witness similar phenomena to the Snedekers, including spirits speaking, such as one asking rather ominously, "Do you know what they did to us?"
This isn't just a haunting. There's a demonic presence here, feeding off your fear. We need to act fast.
The Warrens organized an exorcism. Priests, holy water, the works. They said it worked, and the Snedekers claimed the activity died down. They moved out in 1988, and their story hit the mainstream with a book and then later a movie. Case closed, right? Not so fast. There's a whole other side to this tale, and we're just getting started. Here's where it gets messy. Not everybody bought the Snedeker story, especially not skeptics like Benjamin Radford and Joe Nickel, who spent years debunking paranormal claim. Radford wrote in Live Science that there's little or no proof that anything supernatural happened at 208 Meriden Avenue. Nickel went a little harder, calling it a straight-up hoax. Radford pointed out some troublesome inconsistencies. Carmen first said she didn't see anything herself, then later claimed spirits attacked her. Now, I can't help but counter this by suggesting the two aren't mutually exclusive. Perhaps she saw nothing, but was pushed by an invisible force, as just one example. But Nickel dug into the Warrens' track record, noting that after Ed's death in 2006, some of their team admitted to exaggerating cases for profit. And it's not just them. Other people tied to the house had things to say as well.
The Snedekers never complained about ghosts while they lived here. They were behind on rent, sure, but no one else, before or after, ever said a word about hauntings.
That's right. The landlady and later tenants, including former Congressman Chris Murphy, said the house was fine. Murphy lived there in the early 2000s and called it beautiful. No ghosts, no demons, nada. But the real bombshell came from Ray Garton, the guy who wrote In a Dark Place. That's the book that kicked this whole thing off. Neighbors and others expressed skepticism as well. Catherine Altimus, a neighbor, believed the haunting was planned, noting that the family appeared jovial outside, kind of contradicting their claims of terror. Daryl Kern, the landlord, called it a scheme for money, observing that the reported paranormal activity coincidentally escalated whenever rent was overdue. Jeffrey Pooler, a friend, described Philip as a storyteller seeking attention. Susan Trotter Smith, 2009 owner, lived in the house for 10 years, calling the stories Hollywood foolishness, and the house was wonderful. Joe Nickel, investigator, reported the landlady found the story ridiculous, noting no unusual activity before or after the Snedekers' tenancy. Additionally, the upstairs neighbor during the Snedekers' time reported no incidents, and Philip's schizophrenia and drug interactions were cited as possible explanations for some of the claims.
Ed Warren told me the Snedekers' stories didn't add up. He said, "They're crazy, just make it scary." So I did. A lot of it's fiction.
Garton spilled this in an interview with Damned Connecticut. He said the Snedekers couldn't keep their story straight, and Ed pushed him to fill in the gaps with whatever sold books. That's a gut punch to the story's credibility, I'll give him that. But there's more. Philip's role raises big questions as well. Reports, unconfirmed but persistent, say Philip was later diagnosed with schizophrenia. His visions stopped with the medication. Could his experience have been mental health related, not paranormal? It's a tough possibility, but it fits. And then there's the money angle. The Snedekers stayed in the house over 2 years despite the terror. Some wonder if they played up the haunting to dodge rent or cash in later. Despite the doubters, Carmen Snedeker never backed down. She's done interviews, like this one with CNN, where she paints a vivid, terrifying picture of life at 208 Meriden Avenue. She says no one can deny what her family endured.
Something grabbed me in that house, pinned me down. My daughter was touched during a Bible reading. We weren't making this up. It was real.
Carmen stuck to her guns on shows like Paranormal Witness and A Haunting. Her stories are gripping, emotional, raw. Other family members, like Al's sister Nancy Bocher, agree that the house felt off because of its history, but they don't all confirm the wilder stuff. It's a family divided, but Carmen's belief is unshakable.
I think that they were the experts in what I was going through. I don't think that a doctor would have understood. They probably would have put me in a padded room.
You can feel her conviction, but here's the rub. Belief isn't evidence, and when you stack it against the skeptics, the cracks start to build up. Let's hit the pause and look at what we've got. Here's the evidence laid out plain. The house was a funeral home. That's a fact. Records prove it. The Snedekers reported hauntings. Fact. They told their story everywhere. The Warrens did an exorcism. Fact. Well, they and the family said they did. However, the church denied any official sanctioned exorcism ever took place. Skeptics found nothing. That's a fact. No hard proof backs up the claims. Garton admitted to making stuff up. That's a fact. His own words. He was told to embellish the story by the Warrens, due in part to the Snedekers' often conflicting stories. Other tenants saw no ghosts. Fact, from the landlady to Chris Murphy. Add in Philip's possible schizophrenia and the rent issues, and then what do we have? For me, it kind of tilts towards hoax. I'm leaning more towards skepticism. The house's past is real. Creepy, sure, but the haunting? It's shaky. No photos, no records. They didn't even call police. Just stories that don't fully line up. Garton's confession and the quiet tenants don't help the Snedekers case, I'll admit that. Still, I'm not willing to completely disregard the possibility. For instance, it's possible the Warrens may have embellished some of the case. But that doesn't mean they embellished all of it. Also, what did they embellish? There had to be some underlying truth for that to work. It can't be a complete work of fiction. Well, it could, but I think there's too many moving pieces here. No, something really happened. Whether or not the Warrens or anyone working at their direction embellished the story is not the sole determining evidence upon which I feel comfortable basing my conclusion, but it doesn't look good. This story didn't just fade, it exploded. The 2009 movie raked in $77 million, billed as based on true events. It's Hollywood, so they spiced it up, but it locked in the Snedekers into pop culture forever. People still trek to Southington, snapping pics of the house, chasing ghosts that may never have existed. It's a case study in how stories grow legs. The media, the Warrens, the movie, the book, they turned a family's claims into a modern legend. Whether it's true or not, it's part of America's strangest history now. So what's the truth behind the Snedekers and a haunting in Connecticut? We've got a real house, a real family, and a whole lot of questions. Was it spirits, a mental breakdown, a cash grab? They did pump out a book and 2 movies, although there's no direct evidence indicating the Snedekers profited from their notoriety, but it follows logically they were compensated in some fashion. Now you've got the evidence, tell me what you think in the comments. Maybe I'm off base and this is actually the real deal. To be clear, I'm not saying it's 100% a hoax. I do think there was some underlying event that precipitated the story. I just think it was all blown up for a number of reasons. But like everything in life, we can't know for certain. I'd love it if I could offer a definitive answer for this, but if we had a definitive answer, this wouldn't be America's strangest history. It would just be America's history. And that's where we'll leave it. I'm John Genoa. This is America's Strangest History. Please click like if you enjoyed the show and subscribe if you want to see more. That's it for now. We're done. Thanks for watching.